Hey, Cyrus.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, Joe.
Pleasure to meet you.
You also. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you
You
very
have
much.
a fantastic voice. Not just a singing voice, but your talking voice is very unusual. It's like it makes you step back a little bit. Like, oh.
I've actually, recently I was walking around in Boston and I went to a museum and this like older man walked up to me. I had no idea who I was. He was just enjoying the art also in the museum and started talking to me forever about my voice and then there was a college, some sort of trip to the museum, and then everybody started freaking out. And it was so cool just to have someone stop me about my speaking voice, because that had never happened to me before. I think because I was turned around and I have the mullet, so I could have been, anybody. I could have been anyone.
Or something?
It's Nixie tubes as well.
Nixie tubes.
So they're valves, right? They're old valve technology.
Yeah, he has to get them from Russia. That's he has them delivered over from Russia, so they might have like listening devices implanted in them as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like forensic astronomy.
Has
if you will.
anyone done an analysis of like where he must have been?
Yeah, it's well known. Yeah, he was in a real place.
And so that
he didn't
really
pull this
would
out
be-
of his ass, right? I mean, it was
Right.
he painted what he saw, folded into what he felt. Yeah,
heavy.
That's how art should be, I think.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what do you need artists for?
Make cool shit.
The cool stuff is something that they felt and it came out of them.
Yeah.
And they feel stuff. Artists feel the natural world in ways different from the rest of us, and that's why they're artists.
Do they, or do they just express it with?
Oh, sorry. Yes,
more-
they not only
more
yes,
skill?
we all can feel it, but to be able to express it, that's a whole other talent.
It's
From
a heavy
Tennessee.
voice.
It's a heavy voice.
You didn't always have a heavy voice, though. Like when my kids love Hannah Montana, by the way.
Yeah.
So when I would watch, your voice was different.
It's definitely changed. I kind of learned a lot about the voice and how our experiences affect our voice. I had a surgery in November on my voice. I had something called Reiki's edema, which when my doctor told me about it, he said, no one shy ever has this. This is for abuse of the voice. This is for people that talk way too fucking much. And usually this happens when you're like in your 60s or 70s.
How do I not have that?
I don't know. I don't know. Mine, I think, honestly, really, I started touring, at probably 12 or 13. And not only was the adrenaline that you have after a show, it's not really the singing that affects your voice as much. It's afterwards. You're totally on. And then it's really hard to get that sleep. You stay up talking all night. Later, the talking all night turned into smoking all night. And now this is kind of where we're at. We got some dirt on her.
There are things you need to know if you want to start to explore those questions for yourself. I mean, you need to know that there are 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. You need to know that the Milky Way galaxy has got 200 billion stars. Most of those stars now we know have planetary systems. We estimate there are something like 20 billion Earth-like planets, or potentially Earth-like planets, in the Milky Way galaxy alone. So if you're asking questions about what is my place in the universe, you need to know those things. First of all, it's a framework within which you can think.
One of my more sort of popular tweets was, you remember when we had the photo of the black hole from a distant galaxy, and it was banner headlines, maybe a year ago, less than a year ago, banner headlines, and first photo ever of a black hole, and it was an astounding engineering achievement to accomplish that. It was multiple telescopes all around the world pooling the data to get it right. And it was one of the greatest collaborative efforts we've ever undertaken in my field of astrophysics. Okay. And everybody was loving the results. So all I tweeted was, scientists report first photo of a black hole. Public. Ooh, ah. Scientists report humans are warming the Earth. Oh, you brought it up. Okay. Scientist, we produced the first ever image of a supermassive black hole 55 million light years away. The response? Ooh. Scientist, we've concluded that humans are catastrophically warming the Earth. Response, that conflicts with what I want to be true, so it must be false.
Is it possible that in the future we'll be able to see past 13.8 billion years?
Not with light.
Not with
because
light.
what the picture is that before, it was released 380,000 years after the Big Bang. It's a very precise number. You might say, how do you know that? Well, before that time, the universe was so hot that atoms couldn't form. So you had a soup of electrically charged particles. It was just too hot for electrons to go into orbit around nuclei. So the universe was opaque to light. So you just couldn't. It was like almost like a big glowing star, if you like. And then when it was expanding, it cooled past the point where the atoms could form. And at that point, it becomes transparent, really almost instantly in a cosmic timescale. And so the light could then travel in straight lines through the universe, and we can see that light. So we see the light from that time, but further back than that, it's opaque. So you can't see past that with light. But you can potentially with gravitational waves, which is this measurement that got the Nobel Prize a couple of years ago, the LIGO experiment here in the United States. And it looks for ripples in the fabric of space and time. And in principle, if we had a big enough detector, you could see the ripples from the Big Bang. So you could take an image of the Big Bang in gravitational waves.
So your ice cube is sitting 10%. Your ice cube is sitting 10% above the water level, and it melts and becomes water. The water takes up 90% of the volume of the ice.
Right.
So that just melts back into the water, and it doesn't overflow, even though it was sticking above the water line when you had the glass.
So
now let's do the opposite.
Okay.
There's water in the pipes.
Right.
Oh, can I tell you something that might blow your mind?
No. Sure.
Is that allowed? I don't know. How many times is your mind? At least once a day.
Yeah, at least once.
You need your mind blown. Okay. Here's how it works.
Okay.
So let's put water in the pipes. Okay. And then the temperature drops. Now, pipes have a certain strength.
Right.
Copper pipes, they're rigid. Okay.
I grew up around breaking pipes.
Okay, so now watch.
Massachusetts.
So the water's in there, and now the temperature begins to drop.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The water wants to turn to ice, but it can't because the pipe is containing it. So it just sits there, okay, at 32 degrees as water, even though the temperature outside is dropping below 32 degrees, okay? And it still sits there, gets to 30 degrees, 29. The pipe is squeezing the attempt of this water to become ice. And the act of squeezing it prevents the temperature from dropping.